Imagine
A podcast.
where time drifts slowly,
A podcast.
Where
Isaac.
carries you away.
So let me be clear. We tortured some folks.
If you're listening to this, that means you are a loyal subscriber. Thank you again, and apologies for the delay between these solo eps. It's really hard for me to talk into the mic by myself, which is kind of funny considering I'm a big yapper. If you know me personally, you know that I'll go about just about anything. But putting the mic in front of my face, hitting the record, trying to not read a script. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just talking off the top of the head. I have a script, but I try not to look at it. It's like I've written it, and then I try not to read it. Just because I don't want to sound like I'm reading something, because I want to talk to you. I want to be real, and I'm being real right now, and it sounds a little lame in my own ears. But anyway, thank you so much for supporting me and this media adventure of mine, because it's been a rough one. And if you've been paying attention to my Instagram at all, I spoke about a massive betrayal, something that is going to change my career, I think, in terms of what I do with myself. If you don't know already, I have been a quote-unquote professional, I use that term very loosely, freelance journalist since 2012. It's been 12 years I've been doing this stuff. And it's a bleak world. Media is not doing so well. And I was pursuing this one story for 3 years. And I actually recorded an episode last year with Brother Arnold. And that is what the story was supposed to have been about. And I'll tell the story here, because it's behind the paywall, and I love Brother Arnold to death, and I don't want him to hear this. But I was betrayed. I first met Brother Arnold 3 summers ago in Sabbath Day Lake, Maine, which is right outside of Portland. And I loved him immediately. You know, it's a beautiful story. If you don't know, Brother Arnold is the last living Shaker. Technically, there are 2, Sister June, but she is not there. And I mean, it's basically like Brother Arnold takes care of her, and like, it's almost like hospice at this point, because she's just old and can't really do anything. Although she has an encyclopedic knowledge of baseball, which is a fun party trick, I suppose. Anyway, the Shakers are a Protestant monastic Christian or sect that came over to the United States 250 years ago from England, escaping religious persecution. They were part of that apocalyptic millenarian movement of the 18th century. Yeah, I'm always so bad with 18th, 19th centuries. Anyway, I'm pretty sure 18th century. And they are very unique in that they were founded by a woman, Mother Ann. She started the Shakers. And to have a woman religious leader, quite rare. So they're cool. And they take a vow of celibacy and a vow of poverty. Hard sell, right? But they did have a sizable, what's the word for it? Following? Subscribers? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. But you guys know what I'm talking about. And anyway, 250 years later, Brother Arnold is the last one. And there used to be churches and farms all over the United States, as far south as Florida, like in Orlando, and as far west, I think, as like, Illinois, I think, or Ohio. I certainly know they were in Ohio. Today, they're known for furniture. That's what people like. Oh, the furniture guys. It's like, yeah, I mean, they used to do that, but Brother Arnold doesn't do furniture. He does a little bit of farming still, mostly his flock of sheep, which I think are mostly symbolic metaphors more than something that actually sustains the church, because that doesn't pay the bills. But Brother Arnold, beautiful man, he keeps the spirit alive. And that's the story I wanted to tell about Brother Arnold, was not just about him being a unique person in strange times, because I think that I would consider joining the Shakers if I wasn't a selfish, hedonistic person. But that's the truth. I think that like that monastic life would make me happier. It's the right way to live in this world. And we all choose not to. You know, the story I wanted to tell was about how we all know we're living wrong. And we all know the solution is very simple. We just refuse it. And Brother Arnold, well, he may be the last one, because he would be the last one. You know, you can't just call yourself a Shaker. You have to be inducted by another Shaker into Shakerdom. And so if Brother Arnold's not there to do it, bam, that's the end of the line. No more. Like, people could say they're Shakers again somewhere down the road, but it wouldn't really count, I don't think. It's kind of like rebooting a TV series without any of the same actors or writers or anything like that. It's like, it's not the same show. So I wanted to write this story about the object versus the spirit. And for 3 years, I've been hanging out with Brother Arnold and getting to know him, the life, the people that surround it, largely like the museums, and the people who buy and sell this Shaker furniture for wild sums of money. Like, we're talking like $70,000 for a rocking chair, some shit like that. And I wanted to talk about how Brother Arnold keeps the spirit alive, and all the money and effort is going into the objects themselves. So, my friend Peter and I, who have been working together on the story for 3 years, and Peter's a fantastic photographer, and we've been talking to National Geographic for about a year now, and they have really fucked us around. Initially, they wanted the story, but then some editor says like, I don't want to work with Peter, but we'll work with you. So they tried to snake Peter and say, well, will you write the story and we'll get a different photographer? And I said, hell no. Well, Peter's my boy. He's been here with me through this whole thing. He's the one who reached out to you guys and is talking to you guys about this, and you want to fuck him? That's crazy. So I said no. And Peter and I were like, we'll figure out something down the road. Well, we don't figure out anything because I'm a big procrastinator, but also because I care about this story maybe too much, which is a problem. Usually the stories you don't give a shit about, the things you don't care too much about, you can handle it. Anyway, they reach out to us again, I think back in April. The new editor-in-chief of Nat Geo wants the Shaker story. So they reach back out and say, hey, have you guys sold that yet? And we say, no. And they say, well, we want it. And we're like, well, what about that editor who doesn't like Peter or whatever? And they're like, she's going. She's gone. She's leaving very soon. And then we can put everything in order. And so they do this handshake deal with us. They offer us 30 pages, which is enormous, which would be like maybe $10,000 for me. And 30 pages in a print magazine. Fucking yes, please. But we do like a handshake thing, you know, like, oh, we can't sign anything yet. We can't give you anything yet. We have to wait for this lady to leave. Well, I buy my ticket to New York to meet with Peter to drive to Maine. We reach out to this Nat Geo liaison, and we're like, yep, so Isaac bought the ticket. We just want to make sure we can get like compensated for that. And she's like, ooh, some news on that end of things. And she said, that editor that doesn't like Peter, well, now she's back as like the interim like head of visuals or something. So we're like, yeah, can you wait a little longer? And so Peter and I was like, fuck it, we're just gonna go. So we go to Maine. We stay at a casino. Normally we would stay with Brother Arnold at Sabbath Day Lake, but we stayed at a casino for a few nights, which was weird. Casinos are lame now, by the way. They're all just like video slots. I don't even know how they work, but it doesn't have like the magic of the roulette tables or the dealers or whatever. So everything seems fine. We go there for some event. We're taking pictures. We're talking to people. We meet some new people that are great. And on the last day, we're having lunch. And I in full disclosure with this guy named Michael Graham. He is the director of Sabbath Day Lake. He is a small gay man who I think was a former school teacher. He's nice, but like in a kind of, I wouldn't want to hang out with him, let me put it that way. But he was nice enough. He is Brother Arnold's gatekeeper. I had to interview through Michael to even, before I could even speak to Brother Arnold, I had to pass Michael's tests, and that took some time. And he just was concerned about the way someone might write about Brother Arnold. And so he wanted to make sure, like, if I'm going to do this story, I'm not going to tell it in the way that it's been told before, which is like the end of the Shakers, the last of the Shakers. And I said, sure, let's find a different way to do that. And, I feel like we all became very close over the past 3 years. So I'm telling Michael the situation with National Geographic, and he just goes on this tirade about how bad media is, how evil journalists are. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you for sure. And then he says, we're all at lunch. I'm sitting across from Michael, Brother Arnold sitting next to me, Peter sitting next to Michael. And Michael says, yeah, for instance, this New York Times writer, she just reached back out to us and asked us to put her in touch with some former members who had tried to become Shakers and then couldn't cut it and left. And we told her that wasn't part of the deal. You said you wouldn't write about that kind of stuff. And then she found them anyway. And so now we're really worried because the story's coming out soon. And I'm just sitting there like, what? Because I was under the idea that this whole thing was exclusive. Like, I was writing this story and nobody else was. And, other times Michael had told me, oh, so-and-so reached out to us and we turned them down. And so I was just like, huh, what? And I was like, wait, who? Who's writing a story? And he said, oh, yeah, this writer, maybe you know her, Jordan Kisner? No, I don't know Jordan Kisner. Oh, yeah, well, she's writing a story for the New York Times Magazine. Huh? I'm just like, I can't compute, so my face is just blank, and I'm just letting Michael continue to talk. And he's like, yeah, it's coming out September 8th. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, did I miss something here? Did I not know? Did I ignore this fact? Or is this the first I'm actually hearing of it? And so we finish up lunch, and I go over to Peter, and I'm like, Peter, we have this exclusive, right? And that's like, yeah, that's what I thought too. And I was like, okay. I'm like, this is pretty bad, right? And Peter's like, yeah, this is really bad. And so I'm just like in a state where I'm like, okay, how bad is this? How bad is this? And I'm the eternal optimist I am. I'm like, this can work. It's still good. Brother Arnold comes up to me and he apologizes for Michael and says, Michael's really worried about the story coming out and making us look bad. And I didn't want to do this story, but Michael insisted. And it turns out, I was like, how long have you guys been talking to this other writer? Perhaps longer than they've been speaking to us. And I was just like, what the fuck? And so I'm distraught, and my body language and Peter's body language is really bad. And Michael comes back and he's like, oh, here's the photographer's name, and here's the writer's name, and if they write something bad about us, we can I'll go on the record with you and we'll straighten things out. We'll fix it together. And I'm like, okay. And then I finally am like, Michael, this is really, really bad for us. Like, this fucks us. And he's like, no, it's fine. You just let it percolate. You'll figure something out. And then he says, this whole thing is just one big coincidence. And that line really sticks in my craw, man. Because, this is like a literal conspiracy. Brother Arnold maybe too, I don't want to believe it, withheld this very important information from us. They did not tell us that there was someone else working on it, and they left it to the last second to tell us that this woman was also writing the story for the New York Times fucking magazine. So the whole thing's very heartbreaking, and 3 years of my life, fucking for what now? A lesson learned? And I don't know. The story comes out, and I'll pick up the pieces from there, but it's going to be a very different story that I tell if I end up writing it. And Michael becomes part of the story, and maybe I become part of the story, which is something I wanted to avoid this. I didn't want to do that. But Michael, here's an interesting thing about Michael. He is the director of Sabbathia Lake. And what he has been working on tirelessly for the past couple of years is revitalizing this old big barn on the property. The Shakers, one of their sayings was hands to work and hearts to God. And they say hands to work first. They're farmers first. They till the land, and this barn used to be used for oxen, and now it's just kind of just there filled with like hay at this point. They don't really use it for much. They don't need it. But they're spending $1 million fixing this thing up, and that $1 million comes from wealthy people, basically. And this has been Michael's greatest concern. He did a whole book on it, this very thorough, to his credit. But here's one thing about Michael. Brother Arnold does a meeting every Sunday, which is just church. Every Sunday he does church, and a small group of people come every Sunday, and they have a Shaker version of Sunday service, which is very beautiful because Brother Arnold, he gets up and stands and gives a little talk, and then he sits down with us, and then everyone else can stand up and say something, and after one person says something, Brother Arnold goes into song. And they're very fun songs to sing. If you've heard Shape Note singing, it's kind of like that, but it's like real Americana stuff.
Come to Zion, sing, sing souls in sorrow bound.
So Michael, this is his job, and he's there on Sundays. I've never once seen him at Sunday meeting. He does not go to meeting because he is not of the Spirit. And I recall a conversation I had with Michael where he talked about, oh, God forbid, when Brother Arnold dies and there's no one else left as a Shaker, this place must go on. That's like it. He's missing it. It doesn't go on without Brother Arnold. If there is no more Shakers, there are no more Shakers. And this land, that barn, becomes a museum. And so I realize now Michael doesn't get it either. And I'm reminded of the thing that really hurts is Brother Arnold. And I haven't spoken to him yet. I will. And I'm sure he'll be honest with me about what happened and why. But not being told for 3 years, it sucks. But it reminds me of this Buddhist discipline called Vajrayana, which I'm going to butcher it because I'm just trying to recall it from the top of my head. But it's basically a it's a kind of a Buddhist teaching between the guru, the master, and the student, the teacher and the student, that is incredibly mean and cruel and weird. What they do is they're not sweet, they're like, oh, this is the light, and they're not helping you by being nice to you. They fuck with you. And a lot of these teachers, these gurus, these rinpoches, have gotten in a lot of trouble for abusing alcohol and having sex with their students in the guise of Vajrayana. Now, I didn't have sex with Brother Arnold. He obviously can't do that. He takes a vow of celibacy. And it doesn't... We had a few beers together, but, nothing crazy. So no drugs, no sex. So is he teaching me a lesson, I wonder? Is this like a Shaker Vajrayana? This kind of betrayal, maybe? Or what it is? I don't know yet. But that's the story for now. I'm sure it'll keep going. I don't know if you people really wanted to hear this, but this is it. And I thought I'd let you know. But now let's talk about things that aren't about me. And I want to talk about the Olympics really quickly. I know that the Olympics are over. They've been over for, God, a couple of weeks now? Yeah, exactly 2 weeks of this recording. I wrote my history thesis on the Olympics. It was about the history of the philosophy of the history of anti-doping policy and philosophy in the Olympics. It sucks. I cannot read it. I have a copy of it somewhere at my parents' home, and every once in a while I'll flip it open and start reading, and I can't get past the first page. It's so bad. I cannot believe I passed. But I've always hated the Olympics. I was never a fan. I think they suck. I think that we should get rid of them entirely or permanently host them in Greece and stop with this nonsense of hosting them in these different countries, because it's bad. It's really bad for the cities that host the Olympics. It costs a lot of money and doesn't bring that much in return. That's why you see a lot of autocratic countries champing at the bit to host it, because they have the cash and they don't give a fuck. But the next Olympics are supposed to be held in LA, and it might not happen. There's a big, big push to cancel the LA Olympics because these organizers don't want it. Again, it costs an obscene amount of money of taxpayer dollars, and the IOC takes a bunch of money for themselves from vendors and sponsors and whatever else. It's mostly good for developers. It's a great excuse for quote unquote revitalization. Whenever you see that word, you should know, you should become a NIMBY. YIMBYism is bad. Development is bad. No matter what fucking Obama says about how... Did you know that in that DNC speech that he gave that everyone fucking fawned over, the war criminal Barack Obama said that the only policy he put forth in the entire speech was that we should deregulate the housing industry, which is like, no. He's doing proper YIMBYism. And what the Olympics does for cities is gives local politicians an excuse to quote unquote revitalize, which basically means just kick poor people out, destroy poor working class neighborhoods in favor of gentrification and development, and also to liquidate homeless people. Homeless encampments just get swept up. Executive orders like, we got to do this for the Olympics, no pushback. So the Olympics, bad. I do enjoy aspects of it, and the one that I found most interesting in this most recent Olympics, the Paris Olympics, was Iman Khalif, the female Algerian boxer who made conservatives freak the fuck out, because they're like, that's a man beating up women, that poor beautiful Italian lady, oh mamma mia, and so Iman Khalif was is an Algerian woman who, I believe, they don't call it intersex anymore, they call it like DOD or something. Like, they have a new term for intersex, but she has something like a Y chromosome, a little extra chromosome in there, and that has increased her. She has a larger amount of testosterone than your average woman, which you'd think that like all athletes have a more testosterone than your average woman. So, the whole thing is very funny because you had a lot of good liberals defending her. Shannon Sharp was the funniest one.
Okay.
But guess what, Ocho? She can
Yeah.
still... The question that they always ask, and I know you've heard it,
Yeah.
can she conceive a child? And does she have a period?
Okay.
Does that not make you female?
Right.
Does that not make you woman? I thought the ability to reproduce is what separated us. So now it doesn't. I'm just trying to figure out, because her body produces more testosterone, that
Right.
does not make her any less of a woman if she has the, and I'm not trying to be graphic, but if she has female parts,
Right.
she's a woman.
Yeah, most definitely. Most
And,
definitely.
and hold on, original female parts, not parts that have been added.
So saying that real women, or you're a woman if you can have a baby or have a period, would be considered incredibly transphobic in the trans community. Of course, Iman is not trans. She's from Algeria, which does not trans people do not exist there. So the whole twisting of this idea of what a real woman is and what is fair and what isn't fair, when it plays out in sports, you're never going to get a satisfactory answer. I do think that trans women in sports is a very complicated issue, and that until my opinion is, so far it's not really, it's a statistical anomaly. There aren't enough trans women beating cis women in sports to merit any sort of freak out or too much regulation or reaction. But when that does happen, if trans women start regularly beating cis women in sports, then it's like, okay, yeah, we should probably do something, because being born as a biological man does give you innate biological advantages athletically. And there's enough science out there to show that just like your bone density and your grip strength from just being born a man, even after hormones for extended periods of time, you still have that athletic advantage. So there's a lot of stuff to figure out there. And I do think that, like I was saying to my friend Ian, that if that trans people had some sort of like council of elders who got to decide what trans people do as a community, I would think that the whole sports thing is probably something they shouldn't touch. Like, it's just not a winning fight. And I know that it can be hard to hear, but at some things just you have to tactically decide what is a winning battle and what isn't. And I do think that trans women in sports is one that's really hard to make the public accept. And so for the sake of the trans community, they should just chill out on that for a little bit, I think. But that's just me. Who am I to say? But the Iman Khalif thing was very funny to me because, like, that's a woman. That's a woman. I know that she has a genetic abnormality. She has a genetic anomaly. I mean, she was very strong. I will say that one punch, that when she hit the Italian lady, I was like, that wasn't that bad. But, you know, I guess I wasn't the one getting punched, so who knows. But yeah, what's so funny about this is, like, what sports will try to attempt to do in this instance is project our notions of, like, fairness and justice onto these games that are inherently unfair and unjust. They're boxing, especially amateur boxing, is so fucking rigged. Give me a break. But, like, to see her and say that's not okay, that's not fair, we can't allow this thing because that's not what a woman is quote unquote supposed to be. Like, there are these biological limitations we have to put on them in order to be a woman, even though she qualifies in all the ways that conservatives qualify a woman. So you see how kind of silly it gets. What it made me think about was Oscar Pistorius, the South African Paralympian who I have been obsessed with for a better part of a decade now. He just got out of prison. If you don't remember, he shot and killed, I shouldn't be laughing, but he killed his girlfriend in South Africa, claiming he thought she was an intruder. But the evidence is pretty clear. He's just like, he was in a fight, probably drunk, and shot her to death. What was it was the 2012 Olympics, I believe. Yes. Where he was the first athlete with prosthetics that was permitted to compete with able-bodied, full-bodied athletes in track and field. And everyone kind of debated whether this was, like, fair or not, what fairness means, and all this blah, 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 blah. And my opinion was, like, No, he probably shouldn't. I mean, like, this guy with these carbon fiber legs shouldn't compete with full eight. I don't know what the fucking word is anymore. But they allowed him to compete. He lost. But what they did that was so interesting was they had scientists predict. He was born without legs. He just had little stubs. What they did was they predicted how long his legs would have been had he been born with legs, which he wasn't. So it's a funny sort of exercise. And so, according to that science they made up, because all science is made up, this is how long his prosthetic legs were allowed to be. Because at certain lengths, you can have what they call an unfair advantage. If your prosthetic legs are too long, you can reach a higher top speed. So what was very funny that would end up happening sometime later at the Paralympics, that year's Paralympics, Oscar Pistorius would lose to a Brazilian Paralympic athlete. And he would say that Olympic athlete was cheating because his legs were too long. They got the science wrong. They let his legs be too long. So, why am I bringing that shit up? Basically, sports is a terrible, terrible place to determine these concepts. Sports is a terrible place to determine fairness. It's an even worse place to determine, like, what is gender. So, in general, I think we should just say fuck it and not worry about that kind of shit in general. Now, I will be speaking at great lengths later this week about the Democratic Party and Kamala, but that's for a different episode. What I will talk about today is RFK Jr., because it's news for now, but I don't expect it to last too much longer unless Trump swaps out JD Vance for RFK Jr., which my prediction won't happen. I think Trump wants to lose, and JD Vance is the perfect scapegoat for his loss. Trump does not want to be president. He just wants to win. But so he's in quite a conundrum there. So anyway, if he loses, RFK Jr. would be a better vice president momentarily. But JD Vance almost secures a defeat for Donald Trump, and he has the best scapegoat possible, and he will not he'll escape that sort of criticism. One of my favorite things he said recently in an interview, someone mentioned the whole Democrat weird marketing slogan. Where they call the Republicans weird, and Trump responds saying, "Oh, they're saying that about JD Vance, not me." So, but anyway, RFK Jr. Let's talk about good old Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. Is that his middle name? Francis? Let me check real quick. Yeah, Francis. He just suspended his campaign as an independent candidate and threw his weight behind Trump in a pretty interesting speech.
And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now to throw my support to President Trump. President Trump says that he will reopen negotiations with President Putin and end the war overnight as soon as he becomes president. This alone would justify my support for his campaign. Last summer, it looked like no candidate was willing to negotiate a quick end to the Ukraine war, to tackle chronic disease epidemic, to protect free speech, our constitutional freedoms, to clean corporate influence out of our government, or to defy the neocons and their agenda of endless military adventurism.
Now, some people, those are people who watch these electoral politics like it's HBO's Game of Thrones or something like that. This is entertainment now, people. Like, what else are people watching on TV? There's no good HBO shows left. So this is what people do now. These are our soaps, these are our dramas, and these are the stories we care about now, which is so lame because these stories kind of suck. But yeah, there are people who are like, oh, what does this mean? Does this help Trump? Is Trump gonna get some points? Is he gonna get some points? Precious points? I don't know, maybe. But what I will say is that RFK Jr. is a deeply strange and suspicious figure, and all the things that surround him are also deeply suspicious. So let's do a little bit of RFK Jr. Paranoid conspiracy parapolitics. How about that? My first experience with RFK Jr. was when he was advocating for the release of Sirhan Sirhan, the man who allegedly killed RFK Jr.'s father in 1968. There are some fun theories out there about how Sirhan Sirhan was under some sort of MK Ultra mind control, and that he had an empty gun, and that while he did fire at RFK, it wasn't him that killed him, it was somebody else. It's pretty out there stuff, but, maybe, I don't know. But what I always found interesting was RFK Jr. Would be one of the few Kennedys who advocated for the release of Sirhan Sirhan, who's been in prison for, what is it, fucking 50 years now? Yeah, pretty crazy. 60 years? And I always kind of was like, that's cool. I admire that. He was also featured in Oliver Stone's most recent JFK documentary, and that's the first time I ever heard his voice. And when I heard his voice, I was like, yeah, that's not good. I don't want to listen to this guy ever again. And then the whole vaccine stuff started coming out, and he became a figure in the political world. Now, I don't really give a shit about vaccine conspiracies. I have opinions on it, but I don't know. I can't know. And when someone like RFK Jr. talks about it, I'm just like, I just find it very annoying. Sometimes he'll say funny things, like when I think it was at some sort of donor dinner, he spoke about how the vaccines were designed not to target Jewish people.
COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure, genetic differentials among different races of the receptors of the ACE2 receptor. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
I knew that was stupid right away because there are no such thing as Jews. Whatever your 23andMe says, genetically, Jews, whenever they say oh, you're 90% Ashkenazi, it's that's fake. I'm sorry, I just don't believe there's an Ashkenazi gene. You're either just you're just some kind of European, basically, an annoying European. But then what became even more clear to me was after October 7th, RFK Jr. became very vocally pro-Israel. It is funny to say something deeply anti-Semitic and then turn around and then be just this rabid Israel supporter. But he is not this advocate of freedom that a lot of people would like to believe. He is not this person who's going to fight the deep state. He is not, clearly after his support of Israel, some kind of anti-imperialist. No. RFK Jr. is just like the rest of them, except way fucking weirder. But he is an asset. He is an intelligence asset. He is so clearly sexually blackmailed that you think this guy is gonna fucking help if he were put in power. If I had to, whenever I talk shit about him, people be like, "Oh, well, he's better than Biden and better than Trump." I don't know. I can't say that. I don't think so. I think it would be the same. And so let's get into some of the funny little suspicious things about RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is an admitted drug addict and sex addict. Part of the reason why his voice is so fucked up is because of his heroin usage, supposedly. He also admitted to having sexually assaulted his babysitter. I think he said something like, "I'm no church boy," or something like that, when the allegations came out. He also, there's some weird stuff with his first wife, Mary Richardson, who killed herself, allegedly, after discovering that within a year, RFK Jr. had slept with 37 different women, and he journaled about it and wrote about it in great detail, and she stumbled upon this journal, and that's what led her to kill herself. Suicides are always weird. They do happen, but in this instance, considering who else these people were close to, it should be suspicious. I do think that, not to impugn or I'm not trying to say you're a bad person if you're a drug addict or if you have sex addiction issues. However, it makes you infinitely more blackmailable when this is the case. And you are more likely than not blackmailed when you hang out with, you guessed it, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. There are photos of Jeffrey and Ghislaine with RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. Admitted in an interview with Whitney Webb, the great Whitney Webb, that he had been on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express 2 times. One time he said it was to go fossil hunting, which is odd. He would subsequently lie about that, saying he only went on it one time. He only met him one time. That would turn out to not be true. It's also odd that in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book, that famous little document, there are 9 numbers for RFK Jr. And one of them is an emergency contact number. So it's like, hurry, I have a 17-year-old who's about to turn 18. Come quick. Sorry if that wasn't funny. So while RFK Jr. will say things about how he believes the CIA killed JFK and his father, what's weird then is that he hires someone who is a former CIA officer to run his campaign's digital strategy. Why is the campaign paying for consulting services from the former director of Cambridge Analytica, who served as a campaign manager for Brock Pierce, the Epstein consultant who was arrested by Interpol with child porn? Why, indeed? Why are all these characters surrounding him? Why did Steve Bannon and Roger Stone very early on say he should be Trump's VP? Why would these people who are clearly deep state figures be supporting him? So let's talk about a couple more things. There is a New York Post article that came out in December 8th, 2023, that has a great picture of Jeffrey Epstein leaning over Mary Richardson, his departed wife, speaking to RFK Jr. at some gala, I guess. Presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. was on such good terms with Jeffrey Epstein that he had free use of the billionaire pedophile's Manhattan office in 1993 and partied with him at the Pierre. Kennedy acknowledged 2 trips on Epstein's private plane, claiming he went on it in 1993 to Florida and that another time, to go fossil hunting in South Dakota, both times flying with children, and adding, I was never on his jet alone. I don't know if that should be, I don't know if that helps to say you brought your kids to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. And when this news came out, Epstein, or not Epstein, but Freudian slip, RFK tried to get out ahead of it, and he gave that bizarre interview where he listed all the fucking pedophiles that he would hang out with on a regular basis.
So, and you run into everybody in New York. I mean, I knew Harvey Weinstein. I knew Roger Ailes. I knew O.J. Simpson came to my house. Bill Cosby came to my house.
Oh, yeah, and let me correct something. Mary Richardson was his second wife, who he was cheating on his first wife with and got her pregnant and then left his original wife for Mary. So the New York, thank you New York Post for correcting me there. There was also a journal that he was released somehow. I'm not sure how, but in a journal entry, RFK Jr. says, to avoid the company of women, you have not the strength to resist their charms, and to be humble like a monk, keep your hands to yourself, avert your eyes. In the summer of 2001, Kennedy writes that I have been given everything that I coveted, a beautiful wife and kids and loving family, wealth, education, good health, and a job I love, yet always on the lookout for something I can't have. I want it all, he writes. No matter how much I have, I want more. So he's kind of telling on himself there in so many words. He's confessing, maybe. I think what really made it clear to me that RFK Jr. was an asset and not someone to be trusted was his very vocal support for Israel after October 7th.
Israel is doing more right now to protect human life and has done more over the past 16 years to avoid this outcome than we would expect of any nation in the world. Hamas has bombarded Israel since 2006 with over 30,000 missiles and mortars. There are people in whole sections of Israel who I've talked to who have raised their children in bomb shelters. Their kids have PTSD. So, Israel has done something I think nobody else in the world has ever done, which is it built the Iron Dome so that it would not have to attack Gaza. What happened on October 7th with this attack was the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust, made them realize that this was no longer just a tactical problem that they could deal with defensively, that it is now a strategic threat, the survival of their nation, and they need to go in there. And Hamas, of course, did not build bomb shelters for its civilian population. Right. It built tunnels, 1,300 miles of tunnel, or 1,300 tunnels, 300 miles for its fighters, and it's protecting them and using civilians as shields.
It made a lot of people who initially supported RFK Jr. as some sort of third-party candidate. That for a lot of people that was a third rail that they couldn't abide by, and they dropped him. There are a lot of smart people who have people who I respected who liked him or pushed him as some sort of alternative to the American duopoly, which I get. Like, I want that too. And here's the thing. Here's the real damage of RFK Jr. It's not that he's going to push Trump into the presidency. I don't think that that's it. I mean, I think Kamala's going to win now, if only because Elon endorsed Trump, and Elon is the kiss of death. So there you go. But the worst part of RFK Jr.'s failed candidacy is that he ruins the possibility of an alternative. You want something different? You want to break it? You want to break this whole thing up? You want something that's not like the lesser of two Hitlers or whatever? Well, here's this big fucking weirdo with an intolerable voice and super sus connections to intelligence. How's that? Do you like that? It's almost like he was put out there, pushed to run by freaks like David Sachs, PayPal mafia ghouls, to break your spirit, to further dig you into this interminable fucking bullshit of the lesser of two evils. There is no third pole. There are no options. I wanted to believe, I remember when Dennis Kucinich, like went and supported him. But most of his cheerleaders are sus too. If you're not familiar with this guy named Ian Carroll, who's this Twitter conspiracy guy, he's an up-and-coming star in this conspiracy world. And if you don't know who Ian is or what he does, basically he just green screens himself in front of Wikipedia articles and points at Jewish names and says, His rapid rise is very suspicious. Or maybe I'm just jealous. Okay, there's a 90% chance that he's some sort of controlled opposition in the vein of Alex Jones. If Alex Jones had zero sense of humor and no charisma and was completely unoriginal, or again, maybe I am just jealous. But it's amazing in this massive country that we have. There are brilliant people here. There are people that I love. There are people that I admire. And yet, look at the options we are given to run things. They're putting out the dumbest people for us to choose from. And then they get mad at you when you're like, well, I don't want to vote for that. I don't want to do that. And so RFK Jr., for a moment, I think he had like 20% polling amongst Democratic voters. I think as high as 9% national. That was the most a third-party candidate has received since Ross Perot, I believe. And I mean, there are a whole bunch of conspiracies about how Ross Perot ran and why he ran. So it's all fake, it feels like. I really don't think RFK Jr., he obviously didn't believe he stood a fucking chance. Who knows his exact motivations, but the people who were running his campaign, who were pushing him, I mean, again, just listen to the guy's voice. Come on. You're not going to elect a guy who sounds like that. So the reason why he appeared to be the most viable third-party candidate, I believe, was to make you feel like, oh, there can never be another way. There can never be a third party. But don't give up hope, folks. Things are changing. Things will change. Thank you again for your support. I appreciate it very much. I will be doing more solo episodes. Reach out to me. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. And just enjoy yourselves for the time being, I guess.